Welcome to The Gorgeous Effect, the podcast that's about to rock your marketing world. I'm Julie Chanel, and with my co-founder, Cathy Olson, we're the masterminds behind Funnel Gorgeous and FG Funnels. We're about to drop some serious tea on how to create funnels that not only look amazing, but actually convert into customers. We'll chat mouth-watering offers, copy, design, and give you an inside look of some of our best and worst funnels. No smoke and mirrors, just real strategies that work from two ladies who have been around the funnel block. So grab your coffee or something stronger, we won't judge, and get ready to unleash the gorgeous effect on your business. It's time to show the world what you've got. Let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome back to another special episode of The Gorgeous Effect. I'm Julie, I'm here with Cathy, and our special guest for this series, Lindsay, and we are talking about sales conversations. If you have not listened to the first two episodes, I definitely think you should, but today we are focused on the sleaze of sales, why sales have gotten such a bad rap, why those old school tactics do not work anymore, especially in 2025 and 2026. I'm curious, let's kick this off with a bad sales experience maybe you've had. I mean, I immediately think to all the cars that I bought and all the crazy tactics. I mean, I have traumatic, my heart is racing just thinking about going into a car dealership. Ironic that I married someone who is a car salesman for so many years.
A good car salesman though, right? Not the sleazy. So maybe that's
no, the charm. Yeah, he's redeeming it. But yeah, let's talk about it. The sleaze of sales, because this is honestly one of the reasons why I've not recommended other sales trainers is because I don't like them. Because they're not good. They're pushy and aggressive, and yeah, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for especially for a female audience. It doesn't work in a trust recession, and it doesn't work for a lot of people who don't feel comfortable. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like we've all had like the bad sales memory, the like you said, the pushy car salesman, the DM ambushing, the like manipulative pitch. I have one guy now who wants me to change my payment platforms, and he's literally called me 13 times. It's like that mentality of like, I'm going to call her until she tells me a direct no. And finally I had to tell him a direct no, but I was like, you know what, we're all set. I'm okay. And it's like, I tried to, let him down easily, but he was not going to give up. And I think like, it's kind of with all of these bad memories, it's created like this generation of entrepreneurs who don't want to feel like that person, right? So the result of that, we see hesitation, self-doubt, avoiding sales, over-explaining, overteaching. Yes, exactly. And sales is a beautiful thing. It's an exchange of value, right? Like we're getting money in exchange for something that they need. And we just have to remember that we're giving them what they need. Like sales, Colin Boyd says this, sales is a service. And I think if we just change that mindset of it's a beautiful thing and growing our business and growing our revenue and all of that is a good thing. So I want to nip this in the bud right now that sales does not have to be sleazy.
When I think about all the bad sales things I've had happen to me, and I also get like feelings in my chest when I think about it. There are always times when they were solely focused on the sale and there was no respect for my decision. So it didn't matter what my objection was. Like the answer was always that I had to buy it. Like even if it wasn't right for me, there was there was a weird judgment against me for making the wrong decision, even if it was the right decision for me. And so I think but when I think of, because I thought of people that have followed up, like Lindsay said, followed up, and I really was interested, and there was something else in the way, and it really was a good fit for me, and it was a yes. So it wasn't the follow up that was the problem; it was that they weren't allowing for my space or whatever, they weren't allowing me to make the decision. So like, how much does respect for the other person when you're selling matter in this sleaze or not sleaze process? I guess the question's for anybody.
For sure. I think that a lot of the old school tactics taught people how to convince someone to buy something no matter what their objection was. And I think what you're saying is there are objections where it really isn't the right fit, and making room for that is important. And I think that you can do that when you have a sales pipeline that is full. You are okay saying to people like, hey, this isn't the right fit, because you really just want right fit customers. It's the person who's desperate for the close that is like, they've got to make everyone say yes, even if it's not a right fit. And that's not good. It's not good for the coach. It's not good for the creator. It's not good for the customer. And I think another thing that happens is because we've been burned by people who say they're exchanging value, like you said, Lindsay, and then it's not valuable. I see this all the time in webinars because there are people in my world and they want the webinar to be valuable. I'm putting that in quotes. And they want to teach and they want them to walk away and be like, this was amazing. And I can think of one of my clients, Sarah. She said, when I would do webinars, people would fill the inbox with, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. Thank you. That was amazing teaching. And then no one would buy. And she was reacting so hard to the sleazy version that she went the opposite direction. And I had to say, you're over teaching here. Nobody's going to buy anything. And so she had to kind of come back, and trust me, she dug her heels in, didn't want to, but now she's closing 30+% because people are having an aha moment. And it doesn't mean she's not giving value. It's just a different type of value. It's like a diagnostic type of value rather than like it's like she's diagnosing their problem and inviting them into the solution versus teaching them some random skill that might feel good in the moment, but doesn't actually solve the problem for them long
She's
term.
closing the loop a little too well.
Yeah.
Right? Like all the way closed. Like that, like, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And she had said that basically, she was teaching so well that they felt like they didn't need anything else. Even
But that's not true. They did.
Right.
But they didn't know they did.
Yeah. Yes. I love this point because I had this moment in my business where I was perfecting my webinar, and I remembered back to, so my mom was in radio sales her whole career. Like we would be in the back of the car in the 80s, just like cold calling different little restaurants and gas stations, trying to get them to advertise on the country radio station here. Killer saleswoman. I learned so much of what I know from her. And when I started, I used to do wedding invitations. And when I started that business, I was horrible in these face-to-face conversations because I had a horrible stutter. I couldn't get the words out. I was like sweating. It was bad, right? So my mom came with me on these appointments to try to act like a mother-daughter team and close the sale. And I remember leaving the appointment like in awe because every time people would be like, okay, we're in. Where do I sign? Let's go. I want to get started. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, what are you doing to close the sale? Like, how do you close people? And she said, Lindsay, we don't close people. People close themselves. And that was like the epiphany that I had. So then, I'm growing my business, and years later now I'm doing this webinar, and I realized that the content in the webinar, of course, it needs to be valuable. Of course, you want to teach them the framework enough for people to understand like kind of how the gist works. But instead of how-to content, I started to change it to belief shifting content or like decision making content so that they could come to that conclusion themselves of like, is this the right fit for me? Do I believe that I can do this? Am I getting over that like invisible bridge between the problem and like this is the solution to it? So this was a really big epiphany that I had in my business too.
Yeah. I think safety is probably the biggest thing people need in sales today that the old school tactics don't address, and pre-internet, there wasn't Reddit, there weren't screenshots, receipts, TikTok virality, like it's changed everything for good. Like, because a lot of people got away with scamming and using these tactics because there wasn't this level of transparency. And so sales got a bad name. Lots of people abused it, just like any powerful skill. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. But right now, in order to sell, like you said, Lindsay, they have to come to that decision themselves. Cathy, you said a similar thing, like, where's the respect for me in that decision, right? So high pressure sales doesn't make sense, but they need safety. They need to know that you're safe, that you are doing what you say you're going to do, that this is the right solution for them. And when you can educate them in a way to make a decision, that's the most valuable thing you can give them, is like helping them make a decision that's best for them. And that is with belief shifting content. It's with sales psychology choreography, not to trick somebody, but to help them overcome their own resistance so they can get the solution that they actually need. And one of the best like analogies I can come up with this is if someone needs medication and they're resistant to medication, right? And let's just use it in the mental health sphere, and this is very relevant for me right now. You need some sort of mental health medication, but for whatever reason you don't think you do, or you don't think it's good for you. As a salesperson, if I'm selling medication that you don't need or that's not good for you, then it's unethical from the get-go. But if I am a ethical salesperson and you do need that medication, and I'm using psychology to help them understand their own cognitive dissonance, their own resistance and hesitation. And at the end of that conversation, they feel good about taking that medication because they know it's for them. How is that a disservice? Right? That's not. That's the opposite. And that's what we're talking about here.
I think it's like, I think even the sleazy people are using safety, but in a bad way, because they're scaring you into wanting to be safe, right? So it's coming from they're introducing fears that you're afraid of, and you want safety so badly that you just want to get away from the fear that they just introduced that you didn't already, you may not have already even had, right? Versus the safety that comes in making a calm decision, like a nervous system regulated decision. So it's not like a decision for safety out of like stress and like, fight or flight. It's a decision of safety out of calm of like, I want to keep this, right?
Yeah, that's so many good points here. And I think like for too long, sales was just about like pushing people into a yes, like bulldozing people into a yes. And I think that like those sleazy salespeople aren't taking into consideration the other person's like feelings, right, Cathy? Or the fact that the other person is really smart, right? And we all
Yeah.
have like fears and hesitations and objections. So how I like to approach sales is like instead of pushing people into a yes, even though like I'm so confident in the work I provide and the value I give, it's not so much pushing them into a yes, it's understanding like all of their no's and helping them either knock down their no's, or if it's like a valid no, being like, okay, let's talk about this. And is this really right for you? So it's not about pushing people into a yes, it's about addressing all the no's so that they make the yes themselves. They make that decision.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And you know, I feel like if you put all of these things together that we've been talking about, you look at the fact that you do need to understand psychology. You need to understand psychology, sales psychology, and human behavior, because there are all kinds of things that are good for us that we don't do. I mean, like, hello, like, and if you're going to try to get someone to do something that might be a little hard or tricky or like risky, like start a business or whatever your business is, you are going to need to understand that human psychology, that sales psychology. You're also going to need some tried and true scripts. You are. And we talked about that in an earlier episode where, you need that foundational driving skill so that you can do all of that intuitive stuff, which is really where the magic happens. And we have to get over some of our PTSD with bad sales and feeling afraid that if we dive into sales psychology, that somehow we're going to be like the marketing bros of yesteryear. And we're not, because it's about safety. It's about empowerment. And like you said, Lindsay, it's about leading people to making the decision on their own. That's the best kind of decision to make ever.
There is this whole other version of safety. I was just thinking about this. So with like within sales pages, this is what I know better. I know selling on by way of a sales page, which is really honestly very similar to everything we're talking about. But like one of the biggest things is because when people are on the internet, they can jump so quickly that they won't even hear you out, right? Like they're not even on, you don't have as much attention as you do in these kind of sales conversations, right? And so they can leave at any time. And so if they don't feel safe, they will just leave because there's no friction to make them not leave, right? And so we talk about making people feel safe, but also not wanting to waste their time. And so there's a safety in not like wanting to hear something or not wanting to be something or somewhere that is going to be a waste of my time or is not for me. And so there's a safety in like the relative fit of an offer of something, right? And because we are so freaking busy, we don't even have time anymore. It's like, so there's like a safety in that. And so it made me think about how I talk about online about how when you're a little too different or if you're a little too crazy, people don't feel safe. And so we were talking about this like Julie versus me is that like people get freaked out about me just in person. They see the purple hair and they don't feel safe. They're like, is this person like who is she? What is whatever? And then they look at Julie and she kind of like softens the like she's blonde, she's got curly hair. She's much safer. She has no sharp edges, it's just with the curls and soft and. And so it's so funny. She gets the like girl next door kind of feel, right? And she makes people feel safe and she teaches in such a way that's like really respectful. Whereas I think I bring in people who are looking for something different and unique, but I think we round each other in that way, right? Of not being too out there but also not like too safe. And so like how do you kind of combat that in a sales conversation of like being a little bit different, but not like scaring people off in the beginning, right? What does that look like in the sales process?
Yeah, I think when I think of like the quintessential sales personality, the word charisma comes to mind, right? Like someone who's charismatic. And I was talking to my friend Colin. I mentioned him in another episode, and we were talking, and he said charisma is really just the intersection between confidence and humility, right? And I think there's a fine line between being and this is not about like you, Cathy, or you, Julie. I don't want you, I don't want to say like the confidence.
Here's what's wrong with Cathy, and here's what's right with Julie. This is why it works.
Nothing to that. But in one person, this is a sweet spot. But once you nail it, it's so interesting. So the confidence part is like I'm positioning myself as the expert, right? Like I can serve you, I can guide you, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. But if you come on a little too strong there, it can kind of make you look like a douchebag, right? Like it's a little like too much ego. But on the opposite side, the humility side is just like taking the gloves off and just acting like a real person, right? Like let's just have a conversation. I've been there too. I've had those fears. I understand, right? But sometimes when you go too humble, you lose that edge of being able to lead. So I think that's where charisma lies. And I think that is the sweet spot of that, like selling, right? Being able to lead as an expert in the field and an authority, but then having like just the humility to be like, okay, let's have a human conversation here and figure out like what your fears are, what your hesitations are. Okay, I can see that. Let's talk it through and see if this is the right fit for you.
I think that's a great way to put it, because what we've seen is the pendulum from the sleazy bros over to this like way to the other side, and then people can't close the sale. Then they think it's their personality or that it's a marketing problem or what have you. And we need to come back. We need to come back to the middle, and we need to bring all of the ethics and the safety. And we also need to bring the sales psychology and the choreography, because when you put those things together, that's why we're seeing such crazy conversion rates. And like I said, I sometimes don't want to say it out loud in certain groups because I'm afraid people are just going to like, fall all over our webinars and like try to figure out what's working, because I don't want them to, because they're the sleazy marketing bros. I'm like, you guys aren't going to get this result because you're missing the whole other half of the equation. And in this market that is very, very resistant to trust, I think that we've had to adapt, but we just want to be careful not to overteach or give away our authority or our leadership either, because we do have offers that people need, and they have hesitations, and they need help. They need ethical help overcoming those objections. So I think this has been a fascinating conversation, and I am so excited that this is not the end of the conversation, because we are going to be launching a program together. We've brought Lindsay into the Funnel Gorgeous world, and we're going to be launching a course called Easiest Yes. And we are going to be teaching how to get really good at the sales conversations in 3 spots: DMs, sales calls, and webinars. And we're going to be going through that step by step, teaching you both the psychology and the scripts, both of the things that you need so that it can become a skill that is so ingrained that it feels natural. And Lindsay, I just want to say thank you so much for joining up with us. I would know we could not do this without you. You are so freaking good at sales, and I'm really excited for the Funnel Gorgeous community to learn from you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You know, I geek out about all of this stuff, so we're going to have fun with this.
Awesome. Okay, well, you can go to easiestyes.com to get more information. Thank you for being a part of this series. This has been so fun. And as always, if you have any questions or any topics you want us to cover on the Gorgeous Effect, please DM us at Funnel Gorgeous. Talk to you soon.
If you're sitting there thinking, I need more of this, good news, we're doing a live free class where we're diving even deeper into all of this. It's called Easiest Yes, and we're going to show you exactly how to make selling feel natural instead of pushy, how to handle objections without getting defensive, and how to close more sales, whether you're on the phone, running a webinar, or writing emails. The class is completely free, and if you come live, you can ask us questions directly. Head over to easiestyes.com to grab your spot. That's easiestyes.com. We will see you there.